Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the Square the Circle music channel. Once again, your pal Mage, that's me. We're talking about music appreciation this evening. We're talking about vinyl collecting. So yeah, welcome and come along with me on this fantastic ride. Uh, Again, head over to my Instagram, Square the Circle Records on Instagram. Follow me, give me a heart, whatever you want to do. Much appreciate that kind of stuff. Scroll down in my video history and check out my fun little, desert island take 4 with you contest. There will be prizes. So, yeah, go down and say what's up and put a thumbs up in the comment or whatever in the comment section, and let me know that you subscribed to my channel and you'll be entered to win. So, yes, all that's done. Let's get into what you all came here for this evening. We're going to talk about some more fun stuff this evening. I want to go over supergroups. That's right, supergroups. And this is going to be a list of my top 10 supergroups. Yeah, really fun, really fun thing to think about and compile a list about. It made me go over some old stuff that I had almost forgotten, and yeah, I love it when that happens. And I was like starting to I had to dig through my CDs and stuff. A lot of these groups that I'm going to go over were a little bit kind of obscured and off the beaten path, because a lot of it was just kind of like under the radar type of stuff that these artists, musicians just do for themselves. They don't expect to be creating this super group from the the record label so that they could just sell hundreds of thousands of copies of records and make record industry bigwigs a bunch of money. My list kind of comprised, it was made up of a predominance of artists like that. Like, I wouldn't say independent artists by any stretch, but artists that certainly didn't make selling thousands of records their modus operandi, so to speak. They were doing it because they love the art and they're friends and they want to make music with other people that are their friends. So my list is going to be a little bit more along those lines. So I'll just jump right into it. Number 10 on my list, I have notes here that I'm going to be referring to, because I don't have a lot of these. I don't have anything to hold up. And I decided, since I had very few to actually hold up that were on this list, I figured I'd just talk at you, and I'll end up doing some post production inserts of images. So blah blah blah. Let me just start talking at you. Number 10 on my list, of course, I'm sure a lot would expect this one. This is probably the closest thing when I was talking about a super group. Generally, like in history, were created by record industry, people that worked for these record companies, and they'd, let's grab this guy up, make a super group and make $1 million. This is the one on the list that was kind of more or less, I'm sure that was kind of the plan. Maybe not. Correct me in the comments if this was more of kind of an organic gathering. It may have been. I didn't live in the 70s, so I'm not sure exactly how it all took place, but I have a feeling that it was like record industry dudes were like, let's get this guy together. And so I'm talking about ELP, of course, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Keith Emerson came from the Nice, really sick fucking psychedelic jazz, avant, really cool group, actually. Believe it or not, since progressive rock is something fairly new to me, I only really started listening to prog rock maybe 12 years ago. ELP was something to me that I didn't know anything about. I remember when I was in college, in the marching band at the University of Oregon, playing snare drum in the marching band, all the guys that were writing music for us in the drum line and stuff, like, were big fans of that from the 70s. And so we actually played tunes by Emerson, Lake and Palmer, like in the marching band and stuff. That's really the only thing I knew anything about Emerson, Lake and Palmer, was from that, was playing like Carnival 9, in the drum corps, which was like fucking cool, But I actually the first record I ever bought with Keith Emerson, and it was the Nice. Was a Nice record. It's the one that has like that. I can't remember the name of the record. Please forgive me, but it's got like a crystal on it, or some sort of like geometric figure and like some psychedelic shit. And anyway, really fucking cool album. And I was like, oh, who's this Keith Emerson? Amazing keyboard player. But anyway, yeah, he was in the Nice, and of course Greg Lake came from King Crimson, and so they had to get a drummer. I'm not sure where they got Carl Palmer from, but really great trio. Something magic really happened. So we're all, better people, and the world is a better place because of ELP, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. So I just really wanted to bring them up. They're my number 10 favorite super group. So they fucking rock. Tarkus was the first ELP album I ever bought. Loved the shit out of Tarkus, and then I found their first self-titled eponymous release from 1970, and that shit blew me away. That's still my favorite ELP album. That one was featured, I believe, on one of my videos that I did about my favorite, it wasn't my favorite prog rock records, but it was prog rock records that I deemed to be most influential and most important. I'm really, I'm such an elitist piece of shit, aren't I? Unrightfully so. I really don't know much about classic rock and classic prog, so I shouldn't, speak the way I do sometimes from my tower. But ELP's the shit. Love them to death. So number 10 on my supergroup list. Number 9 on my list, a really, really fucking cool trio. My jaw dropped a little bit when I saw that this record had come out. Big fans of all three gentlemen in this trio, individually speaking, and of course the projects that they are best known for. But yeah, what a strange matchup, this trio, and just one that all of us in the rock and roll world come 2009, I think, when this was released, was just something that we really never thought would happen. It's really, really cool. I'm talking about that group, Them Crooked Vultures. Love Them Crooked Vultures. They, a one and done group, just a bunch of bros that just, probably met at a bar at some sort of gathering, and were just, starstruck by, of course, the legendary John Paul Jones, bass player and keyboard player from Led Zeppelin. Yeah, when you're in a room with John Paul Jones, how can you not help but, I'm sure, just kind of like, be completely awestruck and just, tongue-tied when all you want to do is go meet the guy and say, we need to make music together, because that's your dream, is to make music with the guys from Led Zeppelin, right? So you can just imagine Dave Grohl and Joshua Homme just peeing their pants, in the same room as John Paul Jones. And they confronted him, and he probably knew who they were, I'm assuming. Obviously, everyone knows who Dave Grohl is, but you can imagine maybe that John Paul Jones might not have ever really heard of Joshua Homme, and famous for Queens of the Stone Age. His first project, I believe, was called Kayas, I think. Please forgive me. I've never listened to that group, so I'm not sure, but it's either pronounced Kias or Kayas or whatever. I think that was Joshua Homme's first project in the mid 90s, late 90s, and then he is most famous, of course, for hooking up with Dave Grohl on the Tubs, man, and they put out that amazing, I think, Songs for the Deaf, right? Was that their first breakout LP? Anyway, Queens of the Stone Age, fucking fantastic group, but how could you ever think that they'd confront John Paul Jones and say, hey, let's do something? And they did. Went to the studio and cranked out this really cool self-titled, really fucking cool art. Memorable tune, a couple memorable tunes. I'm sure I think one was on the radio. It was called New Fang, right? That New Fang song is fucking kick-ass. Great song, great grooves, with John Paul Jones just hammering away. Boom, what's that one called? Scumbag Blues, is that what it's called? I think it's called Douchebag Blues or something. That one too. You just have those really great, very reminiscent of Led Zeppelin. And then in the middle of the song, he goes over and starts playing. He drops his bass like he did in the old days and just goes over to, I believe it's Hammond organ, or like some sort of organ that has like clave or whatever on it, and just starts playing some really ripping fucking funky funky, cool beats on that shit. It's such a cool album. Like I said, one and done. 2009, a lot of fun. You know, really glad that they were able to give that to the world. And it's a wild ride. Of course, you know, incredible drumming by Dave Grohl, like always. You know, powerhouse drummer. Um, so yeah, that's number 9 on my greatest supergroups. Okay, number 8. This had to be on the list. I actually really love and respect this kind of like. There was a lot of this type of thing going on where other artists would get together and appear on each other's albums and just kind of support each other with this and that, and just it wasn't about money. I'm sure it was just because that's not how this industry began. This industry was kind of untouched and kind of still raw and independent for a lot of its early salad days, and I'm talking about the country music, country western, Americana type of genre, where recording artists were really like pouring their heart and soul into this, and it hadn't really been bastardized much yet by big industry, and so big business knew what they were looking for, and they found what they were looking for, but a lot of it they still just kind of like, because it was back in the day, it was such a niche genre. I'm talking like 40s, 50s, and 60s. Country western and bluegrass and Americana as a whole was still kind of a niche sort of genre. So only really enjoyed throughout like pockets of the country, major pockets generally, but just you know what I'm saying. But out of that you just get so much heart and so much. These guys, they come and appear on each other's albums just for the love of it, for the love of the game. And that's what this album still resonates and still feels like, even in 1985 when it was released. Of course, I wasn't listening to it in 1985. I was only about 5 or 6 years old. But I remember when this album started or continued to have popularity all throughout the early 90s. And these guys, they were on like fucking TV commercials and everything. But anyway, I'm talking about legendary, giants of country western music. The Highwaymen, of course. The Highwaymen. Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson, and what's his butt? The other, Merle Haggard, sorry. Merle Haggard. Yeah, just that, the track 1 on The Highwayman, their first LP that they put out, just so memorable, so iconic, so great. That was the one that I was saying. It's like, it was probably like, it was like on car commercials and shit, like in the late 80s. They did like 3 albums, I think, 1985, 88, 90, something like that. And it was just super cool. I love the shit out of all of those guys. Of course, obviously Johnny Cash is, the biggest name in country western music all time. But I, a huge fan of Willie Nelson, obviously a giant fan of Chris Christopherson as well. Merle Haggard, I never really listened to a lot of Merle Haggard, but I know a lot of people that enjoy, classic American music, sure do love the shit out of Merle Haggard. So, but all those guys, everybody go and check out. I did a video about a month or so ago of my favorite country artists. So go check that video out too. It's my top 10 favorite country. It's really great. But yeah, the Highwaymen. Gotta give shout out. Gotta give props to the Highwaymen. Fucking legends. All them legends. Okay. So that was number 8. Number 7 on my list of greatest supergroups, my favorite supergroups. Really fantastic alternative rock group that kind of really came out of left field, so to speak, in the late 90s, because everyone was really absorbed and overwhelmed and taken aback by a lot of these guys' initial projects and what they were doing. Of course, speaking about their very famous lead singer, also Maynard James Keenan, he being the front man for the band Tool, super incredibly famous by this time already in 1998. But he's got a lot of people in his entourage and friends and whatever else, and a lot of these guys are just amazing musicians, and he knew that, and he was friends with them, and he wanted to create a really great, cool project with another man called Billy Howerdel, and I'm talking about, of course, A Perfect Circle. They kind of came out of nowhere in the late 90s, and like I said, Billy Howerdel, I believe, was the guitar tech for Adam Jones, the guitar player for Tool. And I believe, he obviously been on lots of other albums and done session work and recording engineer work for lots of people all throughout that whole clan of dudes in LA, in the 90s. All those alt rock cats and all the heavy rockers and metal rockers. That's where they met up with Troy Van Leeuwen. Troy Van Leeuwen also plays guitar. He played guitar with like Failure and oh dude, Troy Van Leeuwen's credits, I mean, it's just a mile long, as well as Billy Howardell's. I know they were involved both with Ken Andrews, in Failure and stuff like that. Anyway, laundry list of talents. Josh Freese is the drummer. I think they've had a couple drummers, but he's predominantly been the main drummer for A Perfect Circle, I believe, for well beyond a decade. But yeah, just a powerhouse of all these really, incredibly talented. Most of them were session musicians and worked in the industry, and so they just were like industry dudes, and they get it. And Maynard just obviously wants to surround himself with massive amounts of talent, and that's what you get, was this incredibly amazing supergroup. And Maynard has said that it allowed him to really stretch all of his talents, his vocal skills and his art, his artistry, of performance art, a lot of taking and grabbing wholesale from Peter Gabriel and a lot of other groups, but predominantly like Peter Gabriel and stuff like that, and just really kind of like supercharged it with like a massive amount of like feminine energy. And yeah, I could talk for a day about A Perfect Circle. They're, man, just absolutely magnificent. For those of you who appreciate the heavier, hard rock, alternative rock, almost kind of heavy metal kind of sound, really cool. First album, I believe, was in 98, or maybe late 98, early 99, probably. It was called Mer de Nom. Yeah, beautiful piece of work. Their second album, my favorite of their work, it's called 13th Step, right? Yeah. That came out, it was probably sometime around 2002, 2003. That's my favorite album by them. They've had a lot of work since. A couple of, like, a cover album where they covered a bunch of really cool standards right around the time that the world was falling apart, Bush administration and all that. And so the Emotive album, I think it was called. Yeah, the newest one I haven't heard. It's called, what's it called? Eat the Elephant or some shit. I haven't actually listened to that album at all, so I've got some work to do. But love the shit out of A Perfect Circle. One of the coolest fucking supergroups to ever just kind of like, appear from nowhere. So love the shit out of those guys. That's my number 7 pick. Okay, moving right along here. Thanks again, everybody, for joining me. Talking about supergroups, number 6 on my list. A band that I wasn't privy to until just recently. I mean, not recently, but I've known about him and I've seen it around, but I've never really taken the time to really investigate. And I'm glad I did, because I love prog rock, and these guys are, a massive, really cool supergroup out of all those classic prog greats from the UK. Talking about UK, that's yeah, like I said, one of my more recent discoveries, as far as like I've only really discovered prog rock, classic prog rock, as of about a decade ago, and this one managed to kind of stay off my radar even longer than that. I only discovered it more recently, but really fucking cool. Bill Bruford's drumming, what's his butt from King Crimson? Please forgive me, I'm drawing a blank right now, which I shouldn't be. But yeah, bassman from King Crimson. And I'm kicking myself here. Oh yeah, Eddie Jobson. Massively talented keyboardist extraordinaire, multi-instrumentalist, played electric violin. His fucking solo album, the green solo album with the zinc or whatever, that album is this fucking shit. It's so amazing, Eddie Jobson's solo album. But yeah, and then a guy I had to write his name down here because I wasn't super familiar with him, but Alan Holdsworth was his name. I guess he was a guitarist in Soft Machine for a while, which I wasn't aware of. Anyway, yeah, a couple other really prominent early on prog groups. What was it? It wasn't Magma. Anyway, something like that. Anyway, yeah, sorry, I'm kind of like winging it here on this one, but like I said, it was kind of more of a recent discovery for me, um, and a really happy discovery. And so yeah, they had to be way up high on my supergroup list. It's cool to finally hear. I'm not necessarily the the biggest fan of Bill Bruford's style of drumming, um, or anything about him, honestly. To be quite honest, his entire kind of aesthetic and attitude. Seeing snippets of him online and stuff, because I mean he's still relevant. He's still all over the place. He's all over the internet. He's doing all kinds of drumming clinics and all kinds of shit. And all the old recordings of him back from in the days of Yes and King Crimson. He's just kind of a snoot, man. I don't fucking like the guy, and I especially don't like his style of drumming. But yeah, that's just my opinion. So all you motherfuckers back off. I know there's a lot of Bruford supporters out there, and they love the shit out of him, so I get it. But my point was this recording and his style of playing and what he's doing with these guys, I really appreciate and like it. I love the shit out of what he was doing in King Crimson too. But yeah, I'm still really upset with myself that I'm drawing a blank on bass player from King Crimson, 1973 and 74, 72. God damn it, I'm drawing a blank still. I don't know why. Anyway, it's been a long week already. It's only like Wednesday. So yeah, the band UK. I've got a little bit more work to do as far as like getting intimate with those guys, but they're definitely on my list of favorite supergroups. So yeah, that's number 6. John Wetton. John Wetton. What the fuck is wrong with me? How could I forget John Wetton's name? Anyway, number 5 on my list of favorite supergroups of all time. I'll never forget the moment I was 11 years old and I was in the 6th grade and I was just starting to listen to something besides Michael Jackson, and, Weird Al Yankovic and shit, which I still love the shit out of anyway. And it came on MTV and I was completely awestruck. I was just like, watching Beavis and Butthead probably, or something like that. And that video came on, and as soon I had seen the other dudes before, and I was like, oh man, I kind of recognize this. And as soon as he dropped it, I almost shit my pants. I don't mind stealing bread. Oh man. Yeah, Temple of the Dog and that eponymous album that they released. Chris Cornell was super beat up about homeboy, what's his name? It's like Andy Wood, right? Andy Wood, who was a singer in a band in Seattle that was kind of the beginning of Pearl Jam. He died of a heroin overdose, unfortunately. Oh, Mother Love Bone, that was the name of the band. So it was basically Pearl Jam before they were Pearl Jam, except for a couple key members, obviously. And their singer, he died of a heroin overdose. And so they're like, what are we going to do? It's a big fat bummer. Well, anyway, Chris Cornell was super huge friends with that guy as well. And so he wanted to kind of get together a project and do, an album dedicated to his friend. And he knew those guys, Jeff Ament and Stone Gossard, the main songwriter and guitar player for what would become Pearl Jam, and the bass player for what would become Pearl Jam. And those guys were in Mother Love Bone. They knew Chris, so they got together, and then they met Mike McCready. And Mike McCready, screaming awesome, lead guitar player, was really into like punk rock and heavy metal, and they just got him into the fold. And they joined this group, and then they're like, hey, we know this guy who did a demo tape for us or some shit, and he's got a really cool harrowing voice, why don't you let him sing on this cut? And bam, Ed Vedder jumps in and just takes the world by storm. I'd never heard anybody sing like that. Not only just his cool low baritone. You don't hear a lot of baritones in the world of rock and roll. You hear a lot of tenors, or guys that really carve that fine line between, having a high baritone and a low tenor. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? The majority of men, basically sing in that upper baritone to mid tenor range. And this guy was just like deep baritone, and everyone was just like, what the fuck? And I don't mind stealing bread. Yeah, super great, man. My fucking jaw dropped, and I was immediately just like entranced with the whole thing, the whole band. I mean, but we were all in love. All of us had a giant man crush on Ed Vedder and Chris Cornell, right? But the music was fantastic. That entire album's great. You know, a bunch of just kind of really great, sappy early '90s blues, bluesy hard rock. You know, shit that you know, reminiscent of Stevie Ray Vaughan and you know, just all that great stuff. Of course, Chris Cornell, you know, really awesome metal type of vocals in the, you know, early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. They were like still like Bad Motorfinger. He still had that real like whoa, like operatic metal type of shit going on. It was fucking great, dude. That album is awesome. One of the greatest supergroups to ever exist, in my opinion. So love the shit out of that Temple of the Dog album. Everyone remembers it. Everyone loves it. Go get it. All right, so that was 5. This is 4. Number 4 on my list. Taking it to a completely different realm. Maybe an unexpected realm. I've seen people do videos about supergroups and other things online, you know, and on YouTube and stuff. And I'm really, really fucking surprised that this one isn't. I don't think I've ever seen it on any of these people's lists about supergroups. I think they're fucking one of the greatest. Number 4 on my list. Remember that group Oysterhead? From right around, I don't know, maybe it was like 2004. Please forgive me, I don't know the number off the top of my head right now, but it was like between probably 2002 and 2006, I'm guessing. I'm pretty sure. One of my favorite guitarists of all time from the band Fish, Trey Anastasio. Super great friends, obviously, with another massively talented, one of the greatest bass players of all time everyone knows, Les Claypool. Yeah, it's just like, what? Trey Anastasio, Les Claypool, what's going to happen here? Who are they going to bring into the fold? Well, it's going to be John Fishman, or, you know, maybe Herb Alexander. No. Somehow they meet and hook up with motherfucking, what's his butt? Stuart Copeland. One of my very favorite drummers, Stuart Copeland from The Police. The drummer from The Police. All of his interesting, you know, front beat, reggae, almost reggae style, like really ingenuitive, really, really clever and really unique drum style. And how's this gonna mesh with these fucking like hippie noodlers and slap bass, like psychedelic, random, crazy fucking awesomeness. A lot of the songwriting style is very reminiscent of what Trey Anastasio, being kind of the predominant songwriter in the band Fish. A lot of it is, it's not like super noodly, like goes off into really random crazy places, but it's definitely psychedelic in nature and definitely, you know, meanders quite a bit. But Les Claypool's always right back there just to bring you back to kind of like his crazy, you know, psychotic, weird world, his puppet land world that Les Claypool lives in. He brings it right on back, and so it never swirls and leaves this universe for very long, and it always kind of gets rooted back down in this kind of that slap, solid boot stomping shit that Les Claypool does. And somehow Stuart Copeland just kind of like puts on that extra little bit of pepper and makes it, and just kind of like upends it. You know what I'm saying? He takes everything in rock and roll that is like 4 on the floor, kind of heavy or like, you know, kind of standard, and takes it and upends it. And he just turns, Stuart Copeland's drumming turns everything on its head. And I know that kind of like, it should be like, that kind of simplifies it in the sense like, oh, he's just taking the, you know, the downbeat and turning it into the upbeat and whatever. Like everyone kind of thinks that like reggae music does. I'm speaking rhythmically here from a rhythmic standpoint as a drummer. But it's not as simple as that. And all of his playing with syncopations, you know, he does a lot of the time have that real heavy, either solid downbeat or a solid upbeat, but all of the intricacies in between that is what I'm talking about. The syncopated madness of all of his, you know, double stroke stuff, and the way he kind of just floats around and, you know, accentuates on cymbals, and just, yeah, these guys, what a fucking miracle. A miracle super band that just really doesn't get talked about. I'm really surprised. They were, again, a one and done. I think it was just eponymous, wasn't it? It's just called Oysterhead. Chock full of all, just tons of fantastic tunes, guys. So Give it a chance. Don't just, write it off because it's got Fish's guitarist in it. No one wants to listen to this shit because the Fish guy's in it. Like, come on. You've really got to branch out and really give it a try. And yeah, if anything, I mean, Les Claypool's the saving grace, and just does a majority of the lyrical writing and songwriting. You can tell, which tunes are Les's, but Tranastasio really, really adds his flavor onto everything. And yeah, Stuart Copeland in the mix, and it's just magnificent. Just a superb album. Everyone check it out. That's number 4 on my list. All right, I'm getting into the rambling stage here. Starting to ramble, folks. Sorry. Again, go visit me on Instagram and support me there. Try out my contest. Do my contest thing. Enter your name into the contest. And I love you all. Here we are. Top 3. My favorite supergroups. Another one that just kind of like, I was in a record store in Portland, and this was like 2006. Yeah, I want to say 2006. One of my best friends had just died. A guy I went to high school with, knew in high school real well. He was also a musician. He played drums. We were both drummers. We drummed in the drum line together. And we always knew each other and always loved each other and hung out a lot. Spent lots of summers and chilling. But then, like, somewhere right around like the end, it was the endless summer. this summer that went on for like a year and a half or almost 2 years, where we were both like 23, 24, and just really kind of getting into some real heavy shit. And we spent a lot of time together those 2 years toward the end. But my best friend, one of my best friends, Isaac, died in 2006, I think. Forgive me, Isaac. Sorry to smear your memory. I'm pretty sure it was 2006, the year he passed. But I was in Portland that week that we all kind of, were mourning and doing things. And we were up there in P-Town, and we were all sad. We were all together, wandered into a record store and saw some big posters on the wall with some beautiful art and some interesting faces. Oh, I know that face. And I bought 2 records that day. One was the first self-titled album by Band of Horses, which is just a magnificent album. And then secondly was, like I said, a couple of faces that I really recognized. And I was like, holy shit. Talking about the Raconteurs. Of course, mega famous Jack White. And at that point in time, Jack White was he was on top of the world. The most popular artists in the world, basically. And so I was like, Jack White. But then I was like, hey, wait a second. That's fucking Brendan Benson. I loved Brendan Benson, introduced to me by my good friend Isaac, and also my good friend Joe. Shout out Joe Mitchell. Joe, actually, he was the one that really introduced me to Brendan Benson. And so we both had a mutual love of him. Joe loved him way more than I did, but he introduced him to me. And so, yeah, thanks, Joe. But yeah, Brendan Benson, amazing songwriter, amazing pop rock artist. Like, that was the summer of Brendan Benson for me, and amongst many other bands. But what an incredible match, like songwriter giants, and most people never really knew much about that, indie artist that I was talking about, Brendan Benson. What an incredible rock and roll duo. And then you put, bass man and drummer man, please forgive me, I don't recall their names, but they're both fantastic, amazing players. Doing them a disservice for not remembering their names, but they were from a rock band, kind of like a garage rock band, just kind of like pretty cool band called the Greenhorns, the bass player and the drummer. Anyway, and then the 4 of them just kind of like this awesome stew of, just kind of Americana blues mixed with indie rock, mixed with just, I don't know, it's all over the place. You cannot categorize, the Raconteurs outside of anything of is just standard, just like rock. They're just rock music. They do a little bit of everything. And obviously, comes from all the influences and all the different, the guys in the band, just like they come from such different worlds, but also come from similar tastes and, similar type of like artistry. So what a magnificent group. First album, oh no, it wasn't self-titled. Sorry, it was called, Broken Boy Soldiers. Is that what it called? Shit. I'm sorry, everybody. That's another brain fart. I forgot the name of that album. I think it's called Broken Boy Soldiers. Anyway, I think that was 2006. Really fucking great album. Lots of hits on that. You know, they got a couple radio hits. You know, that song, it's titled Level. Um, yeah, lots of the last track on that album. Or no, the next album. That's what I'm thinking. It's my favorite of their two albums. No, they have three albums. Their most recent album isn't any good. Sorry, everybody. Sorry, Raconteurs. Don't like the third album. Second album's awesome. It's called Consolers of the Lonely. Probably 2008, I think, 2008. Consolers of the Lonely. That's a fucking, from the first track, that album is just insanely good. So everyone get that album. Raconteurs, Consolers of the Lonely. Yeah, like I said, first track to last track. The song about the milkman. Oh, dude. Yeah. Everybody check out that album. Raconteurs, number 3 on my list of best supergroups of all time. All right. Let's get down to it here. Last two of them, and I'll say goodnight. You should all be expecting this one now, but we were talking about Chris Cornell earlier. After Soundgarden broke up in the late 90s, and he had a really magnificent solo album. I didn't listen to it a ton, but it was okay. But he did that and then immediately hooked up with the hard rock giants, Rage Against the Machine. Tom Morello, Brad Wilk, Tim Comerford. They were just also freshly burnt and broken up from Zach De La Roca and the Rage Against the Machine madness that they were doing, and they said, "Hey, man, let's do something." And boy, I'm glad they did. It their first self-titled album from what is it? It was like 2002 or something like that. That shit is fucking absolute fire. There's like 15 or 16 songs on that fucking album. Every single one of them is absolute fucking fire. But yeah, what an amazing group. Powerhouse trio from Rage, and then throw Chris Cornell's, amazing vocal artistry and songwriting prowess on top of that. And it's just like the supergroup that was meant to be, like far, it's not far better than what each, facet was doing prior to what Audioslave was doing. But how can you take something so incredibly great like Rage Against the Machine and Soundgarden and take the best parts from both of it and make something that much more incredible? It just kind of defies all of the rules of, what we know, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. God bless those guys. Bless Chris Cornell. We talked about this last night. Rest his soul. But yeah, shit's just fucking legendary. The legendary status of Audioslave. Their second album, pretty great too. What was that one called? Shit, I can't remember the title of that record. But it was pretty great. And there's a couple really great songs on that. That one just kind of like, I always associate with a really rough time in my life when I was kind of like bouncing around from like not knowing where I was living and not knowing who I was sleeping with and whatever. Yeah, it was a weird time in my life, but yeah, their third album wasn't that great. I never even gave it the time of day. I guess I should try it. I should revisit, shouldn't I? Yep, number 2 on my list, Audioslave. Fucking fire, dude. Love that album. All right. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. This is my last one. Number 1 on the list. Yeah. No one's probably expecting this one, but this is my favorite supergroup. I've seen these guys a couple times live. They always put on an amazing, amazing show. Killer supergroup called Fantomas. If you're all not familiar, these guys, all a mashup of some of the best, like noise rock, metal, punk rock, slam rock, whatever you want to call it, just hard rock of the, early and mid 90s. Some of the best players imaginable, all thrown into this crazy avant, super fun, like I said, kind of like thrash, noise rock, metal, punk, like, yeah, it's fucking amazing. Fantomas, we're talking, what's his butt from Faith No More, Mike, Oh, dude, I'm having a really hard time with names today. But yeah, Mike What's His Butt from Faith No More, and King Buzzo, the guitar player from the Melvins, and what's his name? Troy Dunn? Is that his name? Trevor Dunn. Trevor Dunn, the bass player from Mr. Bungle, amongst many other things. He, you know, not a session musician, but had played with a lot of fucking people. But most notoriously, the bass player from Mr. Bungle, and yeah, Lombardo, Dave Lombardo, the drummer from Slayer, like fucking amazing. Like really, it's all composed. They go out on stage with music stands and have these long ass, like, all, you know, each individual piece of music is written out in long form, 6, 7, 8 pages all taped together, and they all unfold it like it's like this big piano composition, and it's just the most insane, theatrical, wonderful, progressive, sludgy, doomy, punk rock fueled. Like, it's just fire, dude. It's so fucking cool. But yeah, everybody check that shit out. If you love anything, if you love heavy music, and you especially love stuff like, you know, the Melvins, and just, yeah, you're gonna love the shit out of it. So everyone check out Fantomas. They have so many fucking albums. Like, it's not even because they've done like all these different collaborative projects. So there's like the album of like the giant Fantomas album mixed with like the Melvins, where they, you know, like Dale Crover played, as well as both Dave Lombardo and Dale Crover played drums together. King Buzzo and like a bunch of other, like 2 or 3 guitar players. It was fucking a really cool album, so check that out. Mike Patton, sorry, that was the name I was trying to get earlier. Mike Patton from Faith No More, and many other things from, you know, Mr. Bungle and whatever else. Tomahawk, is that the name of the other group that those guys play together in? Yeah, man, it's amazing. Lots of music out there to check out. You can't really, they didn't press any records of it, so they're one of those bands that's so like kind of like underground, independent. They just like toured a bunch for a lot of years. We're talking like 2001 to probably like 2008. I saw them twice here in Eugene. Once, actually, this was like in, yeah, like I said, like 02 maybe, 01 or 02. They were touring with Jello Biafra, and he was doing like he was doing like a spoken word album, not like a comedy album, but it was like some sort of like spoken word political fucking I don't know how to describe it. It was interesting though, because he'd just written a book too. He wasn't running for office at this point in time, but he had just written a book, and he was doing some sort of like political commentary thing, and he opened up for Fantomas. It was really interesting and really fucking cool. So kind of like a legendary show. I'm glad I got to see that. But anyway, I'll stop gabbing it. Everybody check out Fantomas. Like I said, if you like anything heavy, like kind of the noise rock, sludge, doom, you know, punk rock field kind of stuff, like, you'll love the shit out of it. Really intricate, very progressive, very unique. It's my favorite supergroup of all time. So yeah, thanks again, everybody, for hanging out with me tonight. Appreciate you letting me post all these videos and be in the vinyl community and all that stuff. Go check out my contests. Like and subscribe to everything I got for you. Check out my history and all my videos. Maybe I'll see you again one more time this week. Who knows? My kids go to their mom's house, you know, for like 4 nights a week. So on these 4 nights, I'm like, I'm playing with my stuff, and I'm doing YouTube videos because I'm a loser and I've got nothing else to do. So, love you all. Peace be with you. Be good to each other. Goodbye.